Good evening, everyone. My name is Sanne Wright. I'm here on behalf of Resonant Energy, which is a local commercial solar company based in Boston. We work all over the state. Hopefully, some of you all are here on behalf of nonprofit organizations, but if not, you may learn something anyway. Thanks to Tom and the folks at the Cape Ann Climate Coalition for organizing this. I'm excited to talk to you all about our work and get into the details of what exactly solar can do for your organization. So just a quick agenda for the presentation. I'll introduce myself and Resonant. I'll talk a little bit more about why organizations are increasingly going solar, and also talk about how you can get started with us if you're interested. I'll probably skip the FAQs in the interest of time, and you can come talk to me at the tables after. So as I said, my name is Sanne. I'm the Community Partnerships Manager here at Resonant. I have a background in community and stakeholder engagement with a specific focus on clean energy. And in my role, I build out our partnerships and programs to educate on the benefits of going solar and expanding access to solar. Part of that work is going to events like these. And then towards the end of the presentation, I'll also talk about one of our currently active programs that I think might be relevant to some of you all. To share a bit more about Resonant, Resonant Energy exists to increase access to clean energy, and we do that by helping nonprofit organizations, including family and human service providers, community centers and institutions, supportive and affordable housing organizations, go solar and take advantage of the available financing and funding opportunities that can otherwise feel difficult to pursue. We are B Corp certified and employee owned. Our office is based in Boston, but we work all over the state and have also done a few satellite projects in New York. Here's a bit more about how we work. We manage the entire construction process in the same way a general contractor might. So you will only have to interface with us throughout the project's life cycle. We have an entire team dedicated to understanding and staying up to date on financing and funding opportunities. So we're able to come up with proposals that capture all the financial incentives available to any given organization. Partnership and accountability are pillars of our model. We want to work with others towards a shared goal of expanding solar access, and most of our clients come through partnerships we formed or general word of mouth. And then lastly, our innovative financing models allow for nonprofit organizations without a lot of capital to get solar at no cost. And this is made possible by a network of impact financiers and mission-aligned lenders that we work with. We've installed over 300 solar projects for individual organizations. Here are some that you might recognize. Of course, wanted to highlight the project we've done right here in Gloucester at St. John's Church. We've done a lot of work with houses of worship and have a good relationship with the Catholic Diocese. Beverly Bootstraps is another North Shore organization, a food pantry and thrift store serving communities in Beverly. East Boston Neighborhood Health Center provides health services in Revere. And then lastly, Pine Street Inn is the largest homeless services provider in New England, and we help them go solar on 4 buildings in the Boston area, including this one on I-93 South that a lot of people recognize. And I know you all are likely here because you already have an interest in going solar, but I thought I would provide some context on why solar makes sense for a lot of organizations right now, even amidst all the uncertainty we're facing. For one, the cost of electricity is consistently on the rise, and this is particularly the case in Massachusetts. You can see in this graph from the U.S. Energy Information Administration that there is not only a clear upward trend in average electricity prices, but that Massachusetts, in particular, electricity prices are significantly higher than the national average. And this is in large part because Our state continues to rely on oil and gas, which are imported and therefore subject to inflation and unpredictable price spikes spurred by tariffs and global events. So you can see, for example, that there was a spike in the price of electricity after the war in Ukraine broke out. And as it currently stands, Massachusetts does indeed have some of the most expensive electricity in the country, and Boston is ranked as one of the top 5 cities for energy burden, which means that Boston area residents are spending high percentages of their income on electricity costs. And then under the new administration, the cost of electricity is expected to rise even more quickly than it has, and our governor predicts that the tariffs imposed by the Trump admin will increase electricity costs by $200 million this year. But it's not all bleak, because Massachusetts stands out in another way as well. We have some of the best solar incentives in this state, which likely explains why solar deployment is relatively high. Not to mention, solar is a reliable way to protect against the increasing costs and price spikes highlighted in the last slide. And the leading program here is called SMART, which has been named one of the best in the country. SMART offers cash payments to anyone who owns a solar system, and a new iteration of SMART, called SMART 3, is rolling out this year. So now is a great time to get at the top of the queue. When you do an initial solar feasibility analysis with us, you'll see how this incentive factors into your cost savings. And then in addition, there are other state grants, including the Low Income Services Solar Program and Solar for All, which we can help you apply for to cover the cost of installation. And then we also have our own program called the Solar Upgrading Nonprofits Program, which is unique in that it is specifically designed to alleviate the upfront burden of simply exploring solar. And I'll talk about that in some more detail later. So here's what we tend to see when nonprofits go solar. Installing solar means that you're no longer reliant on oil, gas, or other imported fuels, and instead you're energy self-sufficient, producing clean energy on site that is insulated from inflation, from tariffs, and price spikes spurred by global events. And this increased resiliency saves organizations 40 to 100% of their electricity bills and allows them to be more financially focused on their missions. So let's look at some concrete examples. One of our clients, Temple Reim, went solar in 2018, and since then, electricity costs have risen twice as quickly as they did in the 15 years prior to the install. And so as a result, the Temple will actually save $172,000 more on their operating costs than we predicted when we first did their solar feasibility analysis. Had they not installed solar, they would have paid $800,000 in electricity costs over the system's 25-year lifetime. And then another example is the Discovery Museum in Acton, who we installed a parking canopy for and are doing some community solar with the Green Energy Consumer Alliance. Pre-solar in November 2021, they had an electricity bill of nearly $1,400. And then in December, after installing solar, they covered all their electricity needs with solar and didn't have to pay anything. And then in addition to strong state incentives, there are also still incentives at the federal level through the Inflation Reduction Act, also known as the IRA. The IRA was passed under the Biden administration in 2022, and it has made the transition to solar a lot more attractive to nonprofits. Most notably, it increased the tax credit that was set to sunset from 22% to 30% and then signed it into law for the next 10 years. It also allows additional tax credits above that 30% to be received for projects in environmental justice and low-income communities. And it allows tax-exempt or nonprofit organizations to claim this tax credit as a check reimbursement from the IRS through a process called elective pay. So here's an example. One of our clients, the East Boston Neighborhood Health Center, that received this 30% tax credit. They purchased a 147 kilowatt system that covers 70% of their electricity usage for a projected total of more than $700,000 in lifetime cost savings. And the system cost them a bit over $400,000 up front, but then they were able to get that 30% reimbursed. And so ultimately only spent around $290,000 on the system. And given that, will break even in 8 years. So what would it look like for you to go solar with Resonant? At a very high level, our process can be broken down into 2 key steps. First, the solar feasibility analysis, which is always done at no cost. And then if you decide to proceed with solar, we also take care of the installation process. To kick things off, we'll set up what's called a discovery call with you. You can do this by reaching out to me directly, filling out an online intake form, or enrolling in one of our programs. I'll share all the information for these in the last slide. In the discovery call, we'll learn about your organization and buildings, your solar priorities, and what ownership options you're interested in. The 2 most common being either direct purchase of the system, where you own it outright, or a no-cost option where a third-party financer owns the system and then you buy some of the energy produced by that system off of them at a discounted rate. After the discovery call, you'll send us electric bills and roof ages for the sites discussed. And this is kind of the critical information. We need to do a thorough feasibility analysis and create a proposal for you. When we do an analysis, we'll run a number of different design and financing arrangements based on your total solar capacity, your on-site electricity usage. We'll model the value of the solar produced based on whether you're using it on-site or sending it to an off-site bill, the size of the array, and where it's located. And then we'll wrap in all the state and federal incentives that I talked about and make a recommendation of a pathway that delivers the highest savings and closest alignment with your organization's priorities. So in this sense, it's very much a custom proposal. We do this for each of your sites, and we'll review everything with you in a virtual meeting. And then after you receive your proposal, we of course hope that you'll proceed with solar, although it's not required, having done a solar feasibility analysis. At this point, we can help you find additional grant funding or loans to help cover the cost of your system if you do decide to go the direct purchase route. And if you're a nonprofit human services organization, meaning you serve vulnerable communities, you can also get started with us by applying for the Solar Upgrading Nonprofits program that I mentioned. I'll also share the link for that on the last slide. We recently launched this program in collaboration with the Providers Council, which is the state's largest association for human services nonprofits, as well as some funding from Mass CEC. And program participants will receive up to $7,500 for completing the solar feasibility analysis process that I outlined in the previous slide. And our hope is that this program makes solar feel more accessible to organizations who may not otherwise have the time to consider it. And here's how much you can expect to receive as a SUN program participant. The stipends vary depending on your building size, and they'll be awarded after the solar feasibility analysis process is complete. And you'll receive the stipend whether or not you decide to proceed with installation. But if you are not eligible for SUN, we will still conduct a solar feasibility analysis for you at no cost. That's our standard practice. Our goal as an organization is always to help you thoroughly understand your options before you make any financial commitments. So I think I'll stop there and just put this slide up. You can reach out and apply for SUN at that link, but also come talk to me.